Welcome everyone. Today we have another new episode and this is very important. We're going to discuss about mental health at work. We have our expert, our friend from USA, Valerie, as well as Brian's. We have our friends from Europe, Ali Rice. We have Tina. She is always do a lot of innovative work. I think she can train us about meditations and other things, as well as we have our security expert, Chioma from Nigeria. So I want to start from Valerie that how do you want to share your point of view about mental health at work? Valerie, can you unmute yourself? Unmute. Okay, in that situation, I want to start from Brian.
Well,
Yes,
thanks a
Brian.
lot for having me, Dr. Sharif. It's good to be back. So I'll start off with mental health is an absolutely critical piece of productivity and the workforce right now. We all know that over the past year during COVID, there's been a massive spike in depression of over 300% increase. There's been a large increase in suicidal tendencies and clinical anxiety. And what that means for the workforce is that more and more people are having to take mental health days. Their productivity is decreasing as they often work from home and don't have that connection with other people, that social connection to deal with some of their challenges. And so it's something that we have to address as a society and as employers.
Thank you. Tina, how do you want to introduce this problem? And I even I want to know more about meditations and these things.
So the most important thing about mental health at work, I think, is connections that we develop along the way. For instance, when I was working in one of the biggest animation studios and production houses here, that was possibly one of my only full-time jobs that I had where I was going to work. Otherwise, as I said, for the past decade and a half, I work from home, you know, being a screenwriter, animation developer. But when I started working, and when you're working alone as a creative lone wolf, the situation is different. Because as a screenwriter, you submit your work to the director. So it's a very different dynamics at play. But when I joined Maya working full time, and also I have assisted in some films. So I think that for us who are in the entertainment sector, mental health is given no significance at all. We shoot 16 hours a day, then we go back and we come back to shoot again morning 5 or 6. And then once that is done, if you are a part of the creative team, you get working on the post production, which is again endless. So it's there's no understanding of mental health at all. In fact,
Mhm.
when we were out shooting multiple times, I initiated meditation because that's just something I've always been into since I was a child, and I've also done vipassana and many things like that. And I think it really helped ground people
That's
and
awesome,
develop
Tina.
closer relationships when you do things like vipassana or when you do mindful interactions with people at work. But what we see is that, work relationships are so full of politics because
Mhm.
everything is just, dog eat dog. It's like the crabs that pull down the one crab that's trying to rise up, right? So I think that needs to be readdressed because we need to develop closer relationships at work to function better. And
Mhm.
this is what I have felt while also working with a very big Indo-Japan foundation. And I was actually moving to Japan, but I didn't because I just decided to backtrack. I learned Japanese, by the way, for that.
Mhm.
And our foundation was basically instrumental in cementing the relationship of India and Japan after the Pokhran blasts. So after the
Mhm.
Pokhran blast, the Pan-Asia continent, the countries had become very anti-Indian. So we were instrumental in bringing Japan close in the diplomatic ties. And now that we speak about the smart city, we'd also conceived of Varanasi to be something like Kyoto. A
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
proficient, smart city. So yeah, the Japanese are extremely particular about mental health,
Mhm.
extremely particular about the way they deal with things. And that was absolutely fascinating to me when I was working with the India Center Foundation. I was really instrumental in the way they dealt uh, with everybody, and the way they intermingled and the way they uh, interacted with one another. But I don't think in India we have such a support system when it comes to mental health. It's mostly like you can't deal with it, then suck it up, especially in a city like Bombay,
Mhm.
where there are 10 people waiting there to do it cheaper, to take less time or whatever, and there's just 10 people waiting there all the time, hundreds of people waiting there if you have a job that people want.
Mhm.
So this is something we need to develop closer relationships at work if we are going to function. Mental health comes from intimacy, where we can be, uh, uh, close to our colleagues and treat them really close. I think that is very important. That's what I have seen in my experience, at least. You know.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We have Professor Paul. So, Professor Paul, I know you are climate activist, but how do you want to introduce this problem, mental health at work? Even in COVID-19 situation, I think this is one of the challenging things we are facing right now. Yes.
Yes, thank you. I think a lot of people at work, they treat it as a competitive environment as opposed to a cooperative environment. I mean, the idea of a company is you're all, and its employees are, you're working together as a team to, accomplish the objectives of the company. But that's what it should be, working together as a team. But often managers and employees see the workplace as I call it a zero sum environment. So, in other words, people have the mindset that for them to advance, somebody else has to be pushed down or somebody else has to get demoted, right? And that's completely artificial, an completely artificial concept. I mean, that's absurd. That the but that's part of corporate culture often. So that leads to much lower productivity within the company. It leads to people getting burned out. It leads to you know com- all kinds of problems and the company not being successful. I think the most successful companies, you know, um, they try to promote the skill sets. Like not everybody is good at everything, right? So the idea is you want to minimize the time that a person spends on something they're not very good at, and have them spend much more time on something that they excel at, and then the whole company will benefit from that. So a lot of work needs to be done by sort of human resources to sort of to give people and you a person an individual will tend to gravitate towards doing something that they really excel at because it brings them happiness and joy and they feel productive, right? So there has to be enough range for people to discover what they excel at in the company and how they can best help the company. And it sort of carries on, like we know that companies are in a lot of competition with each other, companies that are doing similar things, but that really has carried on, sort of that's carried over into the internal workings of most companies, and that's a real problem. And just on a very practical point, I think emails should be discouraged within companies. Sure, you have emails with external parties, with suppliers and customers, etc. But I think within a company, I think internal emails should be discouraged. Tell somebody to walk, get on the stairs and walk a couple floors up and go and talk to the person they want to communicate with rather than sit at their desk and email them. I mean, it's got so absurd, people arrive in the morning and have hundreds of, 100 new emails, and some of them are from the person in the cubicle, maybe right next to them, and again, that's very detrimental to, the operation of the company and to people's mental health within the company. So those are just a couple of points. I want to say hi to everybody here on campus,
Thank you.
and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Paul. Ali Rice. Yes, Valerie, you want to add? Yes.
No, I just was saying hi to Paul, but
Yes, you can.
no,
You
I
can share
mean,
your point of views with our audience. Yeah.
I haven't ever been in a. Well, first of all, I'm really glad that Brian opened for the United States because Brian had statistics that I didn't have. So thank you, Brian.
Of course.
Really, what's going on for me is that I've always worked in mental health, but as a social worker, and the mental health I worked in was as a medical social worker. So I was there for the patients, but I did a lot of work with staff. So I had doctors and nurses, and I mean, they were my clients, even though I wasn't getting paid for that. Me myself have always. I mean, I'm an outgoing person, so I know people and I connect with people, and so I always protected my mental health by being close to people on the job. So that's that. And then now I'm working from home as an online therapist because of COVID. And my understanding of people in the clinics who have also gone online for their clinics to provide services to their patients for mental health, the numbers are like out of this world. I mean, they're so high, and people are finding it so convenient to, not have to get dressed and drive to an office. So they're just like, going to their computer and getting their mental health services right online. And a woman who I know, who I do some other work too on the side, and she said, well, all the people involved in getting mental health services now because of COVID and the isolation, it's really going to make a difference as far as people not being stigmatized if they're in counseling or they're in therapy. And I thought that was a brilliant thing. I didn't even think of that. So I'm really happy that we have COVID. No, but I'm glad for the positive benefits of such a horrible thing. So that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you. Thank you, Ali. Ali, can you hear me? Ali, can you hear me? Okay, but we have Chioma. So can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, Ali, how do
Okay.
you want to introduce?
Oh, I'm muted. Are you sure I am?
Yes, yes, yes.
How do I do that?
Can you add your point? Ali, can you hear me?
I've worked in arts and environment.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Arts and health. And basically, my kind of overview is that it's important. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I think it's important that people consider in the workplace people's well-being, their happiness, and their kind of place and their feeling of worth and value. So I think that's kind of essential. And it's a little bit like because I've predominantly worked in education for over 30 years, And most people that are productive are inspired and engaged when they do what they do, so they're passionate, and the best productivity comes from that, really. So, and I've obviously worked in a field that's creative, and I've tackled situations through arts and health, or through arts and the environment, and that's really about engaging and making sure people are fulfilled, kind of team and then disconnections that cause people to feel stressed or expected to work. You know, I think
Ali, Ali, can you rejoin, please? Because I cannot hear you clearly. Ali, can you rejoin, please? Like,
people kind of look out for each other, and that they realize that they all have a part to play in something bigger. Yeah, that's more kind of yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Ali, thank you. Thank you, Ali. Thank you. Chioma, can you help? Can you please continue? Yeah.
So I think,
Okay, can you all hear me?
there's kind of a whole
I
range
think she's still
of
talking.
different aspects to the mental health and at work, really. So, yeah, it's a how much
Sorry, Ali, I cannot hear you clearly. Can you hear me? Sorry, Chioma. Okay.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It's evening from here. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, the issue of mental health is one that is so important, not just in the workplaces but mental health should be given as much importance as we give to our physical health. But with regards to the workplace, I will be talking from my experience from Africa, from Nigeria. We live in a continent where um, we are considered a developing nation with limited access to resources at workplace, limited job roles. Everything is limited right over here. So you see people doing jobs that threatens their physical health, threatens their mental health, and they still do these jobs because the day you drop it, someone else is willing to pick up the job. So it now begins to beg the question, how do we solve this problem? Because people, first of all, need to survive before they start thinking about their mental health. And they forget that the mental health is actually very more important because when you are stressed at work, when you face a lot of mental health challenge issues at work, it might lead you to become suicidal, to become very hostile at home. And a research I was studying that was done around here showed that several cases of domestic violence and all that could be traced to stress from work, issues of mental health acquired at work. So it begins to beg the question, how do we solve this problem? I'm talking from my own background, from Africa, from Nigeria, where we have to basically struggle for everything. So, and I think in my own understanding that if we could start bringing in a lot of empathy and emotional intelligence into the workplace, it will help us to get a little balance in mental health. When we get people, bosses, especially bosses, to relate with their subordinates with a little more empathy, with a little more of emotional intelligence, you could actually make people feel at home at work, so that they can protect their mental health. Because there are some jobs you do, when you get back home, you feel like you are going to crash. But the next day, you are going back to those jobs because you need to feed. So these are actual issues that we are looking for solutions. And I'm hoping at the end of this session, maybe I could pick one or two things from the panelists who are from developed countries, to see how we can improve our own workplace and make people have better mental health at the workplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Chioma. Ali, can you hear me right now? Ali, can you hear me? Sorry, I
Yeah.
think she has internet problem. Anyway, Brian, like I think that Chioma want to learn some point of views from developed nations. I think Professor Paul and Chioma, even Tina, can help her to find out some solution and some strategy. So, Brian, how do you want to introduce your strategy? Yes.
Absolutely. So I think the tech community has been doing a great job on focusing on mental health. Even before COVID, many tech companies would provide everything from lunch at work to massages to various get-togethers for the teams to make sure that they connect with each other. There's a massive movement within the tech community where managers are expected to have extremely high EQ and treat their employees really well. It's a constant effort. One of the things that make me feel really good about the tech community, as well, is the amount of resources that corporations expend to take care of the mental health of their employees. Now, one of the companies of which I am chairman of the board, not to self-promote here, but is a company called NeuralTunes. And what they do, it's a company that's run by a CEO by the name of Matt Gibson. He's a 20-year veteran of the military, the Air Force specifically. And what they created is an artificial intelligence that is able to hyper-personalize music delivery using AI, using the underlying Ahura AI platform to be able to deal with depression, anxiety, and PTSD by using music. And what that enables them to do is to prevent the extra side effects that come from SSRIs and other pharmaceuticals, and use music in such a way that enables employees at work to be able to feel better, to be able to be more productive, to be more focused, to feel less anxious, and ultimately be better employees and better coworkers. There are a lot of other technologies that can be used here. My friend Dan Clark runs a company by the name of Brain.fm that uses phase locking and AI-generated music to enable people to get into flow states, to get people to be able to go to sleep more effectively. There's a lot of meditation apps and a lot of meditation companies that the tech community connects with and partners with, like Calm and Headspace and other things that enable people to be their best selves. So I would recommend to listeners who run companies and who have employees to look at various options to improve the mental health of their employees, because that creates several outcomes. Number one, people who have better mental health have to take fewer days off. Now, oftentimes, people won't say, I'm taking a mental health day. They just say, hey, I'm feeling ill or something has come up. And so with fewer days off, of course, there's less disruption to the company and more productivity. Number two, when people are working from home, their level of productivity, their ability to focus, their ability to put their best foot forward, to put their best mental energy forward and solve problems is directly connected to how they feel about themselves, how anxious or depressed they are, how mentally clear they are. And finally, sleep. People with better mental health, people that are able to meditate and use apps like NeuralTunes, which is, by the way, neural-tunes.com, or Brain.fm, or other companies, are able to sleep better. And of course, there's a significant amount of evidence that shows that when employees sleep a full 7 or 8 hours every night, they make better decisions at work. They are able to work more closely with their colleagues and coworkers. They're able to have higher EQ. And so I would recommend those three things in order to promote the mental health of your employees if you're listening. And if you're not a CEO or a manager, something that you can use yourself or share with your colleagues or your bosses.
Thank you. Thank you, Tina.
So the key here is that yes, if you're unsatisfied with your job, you do tend to get upset. For instance, you're doing something menial that you really don't want to do. But what I want to stress here is it's not just low paying jobs. Actors, there was a recent case in India where a very famous actor committed suicide. So mental health afflicts actors, directors, writers, every single person out there, right? So this is something we need to address together as human beings from all over the world. We need to realize that no matter what your profession is, there is a chance that you may be depressed. In fact, dentists are known to be depressed. You know, there's a rate, the rate of suicides amongst dentists are really high. Now,
Right.
secondly, the best form of meditation is within. All right, to have AI generated music, but the music stems from within. So the best thing to balance your mental health is 10 counts of Om chanting every single day as you wake up.
Mhm.
Okay, so that when you chant like that and you take the sound up from your navel, all of this AI generated music, frequencies, light therapy, all of this is ultimately, stems from a lot of tantric understanding and working with crystals. All of this is okay, but nothing beats Om chanting. And how do you do it? It's very simple. As you wake up in the morning, just take a deep breath. Breathing is the most important thing. How do you breathe? So when you
Mhm.
inhale, your lungs expand. You've got
Mhm.
to feel that breathing. You've got to retain that breath. And then you exhale, which should typically be double your inhalation. The
Mhm.
minute you learn to correct your breathing, you learn to correct your energy. The way you
Mhm.
interact with people changes, your aura changes. So, what I suggest people to do is watch your breath. For
Mhm.
your connection to this world is, it comprises of your breath primarily, and nothing that Om chanting cannot fix, or just humming like a bee. We call it Brahmari in yoga. Mm, you know, or you do Om and you fade the sound out. That is how you deal with your health every single day. Your mental health is yours. And I've been going through very many experiences where I've been up and down and up and down and up and down. And as an astrologer and someone who works in the esoteric world, I can tell you that the answer is within you.
Mhm.
Learn to balance yourself first. The minute you do, you become a productive co-worker who will show empathy, kindness to your co-worker.
Mhm.
So once we start correcting ourselves and become conscious of our patterns and our behavior, we can impact our whole group and our whole community. Now I work with the global village because I work online. So it's not only restrained to Bombay, my clients, they're from all over the world. The first thing to do is correct your breathing. And
Mhm.
you will see that mental health can be tackled extremely effectively with correct breathing and correct postures.
Mhm.
And of course, I would suggest yoga if you can really get into it, for that will completely change the way
Mhm.
your physical body appears, as well as your mental, your psychological, and your spiritual. So
Mhm.
that is something that I wanted to stress on.
Thank you. Thank you. Professor Paul, I think, yes.
Yes. I think I would second and third that the breathing idea. I mean, the breathing is, see, I think one of the reasons why the breathing is so effective and works great at stabilizing your mind and relieving stress is because you are in complete control of your breathing. Nobody else is, right? And normally it's an autonomous function. Normally it just happens without you being conscious of it. So when you direct your mind to it, you know, it really, it really has an impact on your nervous system, and can control, sort of can lower the level of stress, and and also, when you're focusing on deep breathing, you're getting a lot more oxygen to your brain and to your organs, which, if you're tense, your breathing, subconsciously gets very shallow and much less efficient. So I think that's a key factor. I think that that's the key factor for mental health is the idea of control. You need to understand as a person that most things that are occurring in the world, on the news, or even things that happen, there's a couple big factors. The first factor is that you need to recognize that the vast majority of things going on, you have absolutely no control of. So, when you, like, your news intake, for example, can get you extremely stressed, especially if you work in the field of something like climate change or poverty, or one of these huge issues, where you see a lot of people suffering, right? Or with climate change, how much worse it's going to get, and you try to communicate that to people, but very little action seems to be done. So all of these things can be extremely stressful, depending on your specific field of study. And what you have to realize is that as far as you're concerned, you don't have control over all of these things that are happening externally, but you have control over what's happening internally. You have control over the amount of news that you take in. You can reduce that at periods when other things are giving you a lot of stress. You have control over how your brain. You have control over over your thoughts, of how you process things, right? And sometimes you forget that, and you think that you're lacking the agency or control. But you need to have this deliberation and say, okay, I've got I'm not feeling great. I need to shut out some of these external events, and worry about work on my breathing or meditation or exercise or eating properly or getting enough sleep. The things that you have agency to affect within, like your own life, your own, what you do, how you use your time, right? Because we all like to feel productive. We all like to make a difference, and sometimes we feel that we're making absolutely no difference, for example. So those are points where I have hobbies, lots of hobbies. I play too much chess. I play chess, but and it's a very good sort of thing for me. But then when I'm really stressed, I can end up playing way too much chess, and then it. So things in moderation. I think keeping things in moderation is one of the important life skills. If you spend too much time or thought on one particular thing, then that's occurring to the detriment of other parts of your life. So keeping things in perspective and keeping a balance on things, I think is very important. So, but breathing, yeah, breathing is works so well because we have complete control over our breathing when we want to, and we don't. It's not something we normally have complete control over because because it happens. We don't consciously think, okay, I have to breathe now, right? I mean, it happens automatically. So that it's that part of the nervous system, the autonomous nervous system.
Yeah, but that's where the
But it's
mindfulness comes in. And
yeah,
you tune
but
in and you start watching your
yeah,
breath, and then it all makes sense and everything sits
yes, yeah,
perfectly together.
yeah. So breath is key. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you, thank you. We have our honorable guest, Musharraf Hossain sir. He is president of Human Resource Federations. Even he was president of Asia Pacific HR Federation. Sir, we are discussing about mental health. Uh, and you are expert of human resource management, and you visit around the world and do a lot of work in the HR field, human resource development field. So how do you want to introduce this point, mental health at work? We have our guests from around the world, like Mr. Brian, Professor Pauls, Valerie, Tina, Chioma, Ali Rice, Oshna Kachis, from around the world. So, sir, how do you want to introduce the problems and issues?
Thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm very sorry to join late because I had MBA class. I was teaching in Somalia, sitting in Bangladesh in MBA program. So that's the reason I was late. Thank you for introducing me, very generous introduction. But I will definitely answer your question. But let me give a disclaimer. I am not the mental stress expert. I'm the HR professional. So, in my view, we need employee who is physically and mentally sound. That is the requirement of employee in the organization. We need someone who is physically and mentally sound, capable. In Bangladesh, is it recognized that 10% people have some issue with their mental conditions, according to the Bangladesh, Association for Mental Health, and they said like this. But in my view, the mental health means if somebody's, brain is working properly, if that can produce the result, there is no issue here, and there is a high tolerance of stress management, those people are mentally fit. In recent time, because of the COVID pandemic, across the world, it covers over 220 countries in the world. What we see, this situation has significantly contributed to increase the mental stress and health situation. And there are situations people are suffering from disease, they are suffering from their income, and some people lost their job. And that created a lot of mental stresses, and many people could not absorb them. And that's the reason some people, they lost control on their own health and the stress. They cannot anymore take in the stress in their workplace. And that's result either job cut or a significant productivity loss due to the lack of attention. But unfortunately, many organizations, they do not recognize this. In country like Bangladesh, mental disease are not considered as a disease. This is a problem. Second thing is that most employees, they even are not ready to share that they have an issue of mental stress because of cultural problem. And that's the reason we always take some extra measures so that people come up and seek the help. Because this is a disease like another disease, like physical disease. But unfortunately, I don't know why, I'm not the mental stress expert, why people are reluctant to share. And particularly, we have female speakers here, so I think you will not take any defense. In our country, we see that female are more reluctant to share their issues because they think that if they are being identified and recognized that they have some issue, mental health issue, then it will affect in their family, it will affect in their job. So altogether, exact mental health and stress situation is still not, very much, prevalent, and the statistics is not with us. However, organization must take some measures in order to keep their employees physically and mentally, sound. And local organizations, they are not taking that much effort. But I tell you, national and international organizations and some local big corporations, they are taking care. They have their own um, clinics. They try to help, and if they fail, then they refer to the specialist physicians and psychiatric. But this is an issue. This was an issue, but now it is increasingly alarming in every country. Bangladesh is not, exception. But the issue is people consider this is a HR issue, and that's why through our federation we are trying to give a sense to the organization that we need to take care of it, and we need employee to be mentally and physically sound in order to be able to contribute for the organization. But this is a very, very difficult task. It is not being recognized even by the government, and there is no clear-cut protocol when a person will be seeking support. And for that, we are organizing frequently the webinar by the qualified physician and psychiatric to give a sense that this is like another disease. There is no shame sharing it, get it, and it is a curable thing, but it is a silent disease. People are, just bearing it, not sharing it, and organization is also very quietly ignoring it. This is the situation. I don't know whether I answered you appropriately, but I tried to give you a sense. What is all about mental illness and what is the prevalence and how things are handling. You have rightly mentioned that I have traveled more than 100 countries. Probably very few countries remaining. And I have seen this is a problem in everywhere in the world, but developed countries are addressing it. They have sensitized people. We, the people of developing countries, we probably could not sensitize them sufficiently, and there are some limitations of laws. Government need to take care of it. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Valerie, do you want to add some point?
Well, I think that are you Dr. Hussein? I think
Musharraf
he's
Hossain.
right. He's
Yes.
right. The reluctance for men to get into therapy is like amazing here in the United States as well. I think COVID is making it easier for men and definitely having an effect on the stigma. You weren't here earlier when I was talking about that. I have more clients online than men. I've got plenty of men. And I think part of the reason why men have much more what's the word, fragile mental health than women is because men don't really share intimately with anybody but their significant other. They don't have a support system. If they get together and they watch football, okay, so they have one way to get their anger out. And really, they're limited in allowing themselves to have feelings other than anger. I mean, men don't get super joyful unless it's a game. Otherwise, they're considered to be gay. That's the biggest stigma, I think, that men have, not opening up because they're fragile and scared to look like sissies, faggots, whatever the bad thing is. Their parents raised them not to cry. And so there they are, boxes all stuck up, and they really don't have a place to unload. They won't go to mental health, and they really won't tell their close friends anything intimate. They just get excited about games. And then the other thing that Paul recommended was balance. I agree 100%. My father was an amazing role model for me as a child. He was a dentist. He was in people's mouths, just like you were talking about, Tina. Dentist in people's mouths, and the patients hate them, and the patients have pain and so much fear. And my father did a really good job. He worked hard and he played hard. He sailed, he meditated, he ran, he ate good food. My father was and he also had a men's group where they actually talked about issues intimately. They talked about their marriages, they talked about sex. Look, I never got to participate, but I'm quite sure. But he was older. He wasn't a 20 something. He wasn't a 30 something. He didn't start like really being intimate with his friends on the block until he was, I'm going to say 50, 60, 70, 80. From 50 on, and he lived till he was 90. And he was in great shape up until then, probably better shape than most of us right here, right now.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. Chioma, Chioma, can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Okay.
yes, I have. Yes. I've been
Mhm.
listening to all these amazing people come up with so many strategies from listening using AI engineered apps to trigger sleep to controlling our breath, to getting balanced and to speaking up. And then there's something that also strikes me as something that can help people to maintain their mental health. I always do that. People should know when to set the limits. When you have reached that threshold, there's always a threshold that you will attain, and then the next thing is burnout. And from burnout, you could recline. We set a lot of deadlines. We want to always be in the news. We want to achieve this. We want to shatter glass ceilings. Sometimes most people don't even work for any enterprise. They work for themselves and they still have mental health stress at work. When they are the bosses, they are the owners, because there's this pressure, everyone wants to be an Elon Musk. Everyone wants to, get to that level where you are the one that everyone is talking about. I tell people that everyone must not shatter those ceilings, but just do your fundamental best. There has to be a limit. I always do that. There are times that I will walk and walk and walk, and then I will take a hiatus, and I'll just recoil and get some me time and heal and meditate and talk to myself and just lay about, as in just lie down on my bed and do nothing. Yeah, because if we consider that the human body is a system, that means it works basically like most of the mechanical systems that we have out there. And then if you have to work for 365 days in a year, for as long as you've been active and you've not taken any breaks, there's a possibility that there's going to be a crash. And that crash is going to come from within. Nobody is giving you the stress, but you're the one putting yourself through those stress. So we should always identify our stress threshold and know when to call, when to take some much needed breaks. And then there's something else I also teach myself. I teach myself to love myself and to value myself. When you love yourself and value yourself, no matter the shortcomings that you have as a person, you love yourself and you value yourself, the stress can no longer get to you, because there is this beautiful gate that you put around yourself. The love just forms this shed around you that it doesn't break in, it doesn't get it to you. People may try to stress you, and you are just like this. You just keep pushing those stress away, because there's so much love, you have so much value, you have so much you have yourself at the level where you are just untouchable by stress, because you have surrounded yourself with self-love, with self-value, and you have attached a great worth to yourself. So these are some of the strategies that I use to balance my health, because I work in a male dominated profession where everybody is expecting me to also work as hard as the men. And I have a family, and I have to study, and I have to do all these things. And then I have so much expectations. But there are times I just wake up and I just go off air, and I'm like, I need me time, and I want to have some me time. So these are some of my strategies, and I'm also open to learn more from this amazing panel.
Mhm. Thank you, Professor Paul. As you are climate activist, and in present situations, actually the COVID is a big challenge right now. Beside that, many people actually work from home, and many people lose their job, and many things happening. Now we have to be mentally more focused, and we need to work. So what is your advice specifically for corporations, like how they can prepare themselves, how they can take care of their employees, take care of their peoples properly?
Okay, so first of all, yeah, so I think the best thing that corporations need to demonstrate to employees that that they understand COVID, and they need to, they have protocols in place to try to minimize any spread in the workplace. But I think what is lacking is, COVID. We didn't really learn too much from 1918, from the Spanish flu. I
Mhm.
mean, COVID has always been an airborne disease, and other viruses that come along in the future, and ones we had in the more recent past, like SARS and MERS, they're all they're all spread by people, by aerosols in the air. And when aerosols, basically people coughing and sneezing, etc., virus particles are expelled. A lot of them are caught in the water droplets in the sneezes. But then in a dry environment in the winter, those water droplets, the water evaporates. So then we have the virus particles, the nano-sized virus particles, floating around in the air. So in any
Mhm.
workplace or public space, the most
Mhm.
important thing is air ventilation. If there is, if a room feels stuffy and there's virus particles in that room, they will stay in that room for all day. And anybody walking into that room hours after a person exposed can catch the virus. So the easiest way to ensure that we have good air, we need a way to monitor, measure air quality, and we have a perfect device to do that. It's a carbon dioxide detector. Okay, if we know that outside, and this is connected, of course, to climate change, right? We talk about CO2 all the
Mhm.
time, but this is the key to
Mhm.
solving the virus in public spaces, to monitoring it. If we measure the CO2 level outside, it's about 420 parts per million. If we
Mhm.
measure it inside, we might get 600 or 800 or 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 in some classrooms. If
Mhm.
it's above, about, call it, say, 800 parts per million, then the room is unsafe because there's not sufficient ventilation to clear a virus, right? So we need a CO2 detector. I'm not talking carbon monoxide, I'm talking carbon dioxide. We needed a detector for CO2, a cheap, a detector in every space. And
Mhm.
then, it's not just this virus, it's any virus coming along in the future. And then we know that, we're going to be relatively safe in this environment. If we're wearing masks indoors and the CO2 level is 3,000 parts per million, we're going to probably catch the virus, especially if we're in that room for any length of time. Because the room now, so ventilation could be as simple as just cracking windows, just opening them the smallest amounts possible. I'm talking about even in the winter. We won't have tremendous heat loss, and we'll ensure that there's good circulation. It's amazing. If you take an enclosed, stuffy room with high CO2 and you crack a window, it's going to be close to atmospheric, close to external levels of CO2 very, very quickly. And if you have it, cracked, one window cracked in a boardroom, for example, it's better to have a couple to have cross ventilation. the room CO2 level is not going to climb more than a couple hundred parts per million above external. So that's the biggest factor. And when people can then have better mental health, they can see the CO2 number and they can say, this is a room I'm not going to go into. There's not enough ventilation. So that's as far as dealing with today's virus and any virus in the future. I think this is as important as any vaccine. The next thing is it's really, I said before, it's really what's happening inside your brain affecting how you feel. All this external stuff is going on. So it's good to have metaphors, like, for example, when people are pushing against you, when too much is going on and you're feeling stressed, to metaphorically to think of an impenetrable core in your body, and emotions and bad stuff cannot get into this core. This core is sort of your inner stability, but to think of it as like the earth with a layer, and within that core, if you find that core being penetrated, then you step back and you deal with you deal with your recovery and feeling, mental health. And before you go out and deal again, jump into the fire of your job or society or whatever else. The other thing is, I was very interested in some of Brian's technologies, and I want to bring up a couple that he didn't mention. One of them is this device called Muse, which is you wear over your head and it detects your brain waves. And when you meditate, it's very effective for getting some feedback as to how well and how effective your meditation is. Another device that is very expensive right now, but it's, if you're on Facebook and stuff, you see it advertised often. I don't remember the name of it, but what it is, it's a device that you put in your mouth, okay, and you breathe through it, and it measures the airflow in your breast, both in and out, and it's connected by an app to your phone. And it's people use it, and it increases your capacity, your lung capacity. Athletes use it, many other people use it, but it's very expensive. And I don't know why the only reason it's expensive is because there's only one company producing it. So, Brian, it would be very interesting for you to look into it. We need competitors. It's basically just a device. It measures a little fan or whatever. It measures airflow in breaths connected to an app, and it allows you to do exercises 5-10 minutes a day to increase your lung capacity. And if you increase your lung capacity, then your breathing it can be much better, and that will allow you to deal with stress. Two other things quickly. One technique is called brain spotting, and the other is it's eye movement processing, reprocessing, or something, or eye movement. Okay, so there's a lot of doctors in
EMDR.
Pardon me? EMPR?
It's called EMDR.
Yeah, so this technique basically, if you're with a therapist and you think of some very painful memories, so you're very stressed and stuff, if they just move their fingers or hand like this, it gets and ask you to track it with your eyes as you're talking about that very painful thing. The internal pain you feel from this experience is greatly reduced. Okay, so some people are using these long bars of LED lights, which your eyes will track during a session, or other people are just using their hands. But there's a lot of new research on how that technique can be used to alleviate things like depression and post-traumatic PTSD, things like that. Because your brain, psychologists are often, they're focused only on the brain, but the brain is just part of the body. So getting your eyes to move, the eyes, we often say the eyes are the window to your soul. So getting your eyes to be actually physically doing something while you're discussing these memories, it seems to really, really help alleviate the depression and the stress. So those are technologies that, I could see very easily incorporated into apps, and very inexpensive, ways. And then they can help huge numbers of people, especially the breath monitoring device. I mean, it's about $330 US for this, and it's a very simple thing, but there's only one company making it. And I think there's a lot of routes like that. For also, there's another technology thing. You know, we're getting heat waves and we're getting huge amounts of heat, and people that are working outdoors, for example, under these tremendous heat conditions, are getting huge amounts of stress on their bodies. And there's some companies that are looking at, that have developed little suits or jackets that you wear, and there's a little battery, and there's a little cooler device, a little solid state cooler. It's called a it's just a thermocouple, or not a thermocouple. It's a little solid state device. It gets a little electric current. It cools one side, heats the other side. So people wearing those, if those are embedded in clothing that you wear and you're working outside in India or in a very warm country in the middle of the summer, you know, it cools your body core temperature and reduces, allows you to work outside, actually. I call it a chill suit, right? So there could be very inexpensive technologies like that allow people to, you know, to work, to allow people to work and to have less stress in what, I mean, if you're working outside and that's your job, you have to do it to feed people, and you get, it's crazy of heat exhaustion each day. You know, something like that can relieve the stress in your life tremendously. So little technologies, a lot of them can be very, very simple concepts. We just need entrepreneurs to come and to, you know, figure out how to improve them and mass produce them, and then that can relieve stress to a lot of people around the world as climate change accelerates. And yeah, so that's my 2
Thank you.
cents.
Thank you, Professor Paul. Mr. Brand, so I know you are in hurry, but you are working in tech industry in Silicon Valleys, and you are running AI-related technology and many interesting things. So how we can involve with technology, and technology can help us to solve this kind of problem.
Yes, absolutely. Look, the rate of change in the adoption of technology is increasing rapidly. It has already hit the point of inflection. And so technology can solve a lot of the problems that we face as a human race. Of course, we know that there are a lot of challenges that we face from a mental health standpoint, everything from social media causing people to compare their everyday lives to other people's highlight reels, which causes massive levels of mental health issues. We have issues around the rapidly changing world that changes faster than people's ability to adapt to that change, which also causes mental health issues. We have issues around COVID and being disconnected from our friends and coworkers, which also causes mental health issues. Now, with all that being said, all is not lost. We are extremely adaptable as a human race. We find solutions to these problems using technology. So, Paul, thank you for mentioning several of the other tech apps that people can use. Muse is a fantastic one. We're a huge believer in using music as medicine. For thousands of years, wisdom traditions have used music as medicine to enable people to feel better. And then we moved to a time where music was just used to dance or for entertainment purposes. But the reality is, if you think about the way that music can get you to be more engaged and more excited when you're working out, it can make you feel sad, it can make you feel happy. Music can also be used to change your mental state, which is fascinating. And so at Neural Tunes, we find that we can highly personalize music to fit whatever the unique needs of that individual is. And then through phase shifting, even change country music or heavy metal or rock or what have you to actually have the desired impact on an individual, which there's 18 years of research in the National Institute of Health and a lot of work that's being done on it. And of course, there's a lot of other incredible apps and technologies that can be used here. So I apologize, I have to go to another meeting. It's 8 a.m. now here in Las Vegas. But thank you so much, Dr. Sharif, for having me. You always have fantastic conversations with amazing guests. It was a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to chat with all of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brand, for your support and everything. We have our summit this May. Definitely, we're going to invite you and your team in this summit. Thank you.
I look forward to it. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Tina, I have some interesting questions because you are expert on
Before
meditation.
anything, music as therapy has been used by our ancestors in the Samaveda. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
music as therapy is nothing new to the Indian subcontinent. We
Hmm.
have been doing this for very long. Even that process of looking at the dots and moving your eyes is actually called tratak, which
Hmm.
is something that I have been doing. So, all of these technologies are actually centered around the human consciousness and ancient knowledge.
Hmm.
So if you combine both, do you understand where you could go? If you not just depend on external technologies, but if you actually also work from within, then you can
Hmm.
balance both. And another thing, before anything, I want to address Sir from Bangladesh when he said that women are not, do not want to talk about their mental health. So,
Hmm.
sir, presumably Bengali is your first language. If it is, it's mine too. Namaskar. If
Hmm.
not, then you know what it means. You live in Bangladesh. But to tell you the truth, why women? Because from the beginning of psychiatry, women were supposed to be neurotic. It was
Hmm.
the
Right.
uterus that gave people hysteria. Women
Hmm.
were confined, women were systematically oppressed for generations when they spoke about mental health. It was not even important. It was, oh, that woman is hysterical. We still tend to do that today, don't we? Oh, she's just hysterical. Or she's having a meltdown. Why? Because the feminine
Right.
nature is one that spontaneously reacts. And we are emotionally very, very involved with the world. That is the feminine, And we all have masculine and feminine within us. So the
Hmm.
part of you that is creative, that is nurturing, that is sensitive to external stimuli is feminine. So the feminine has been repeatedly shunned for displaying emotions. Because in this society and this civilization we have created, emotions are for the weak, right? Men don't display emotions. As you said, it's always pejorative terms are used for men who show emotion. But thankfully, that is changing, right? That
Hmm.
is changing. Men realize how important it is, the art of touch, the art of touch, the art of just being able to laugh with someone, not have to deal with, how big is your bicep or what car do you have or, how many times do you gym. This is all on the surface. And I'm not saying it's wrong to, like cars or go to the gym. Wonderful things completely. But to be able to also be emotionally receptive, emotionally
Right.
sensitive is very important. And why women do not display that? Because women have been systematically oppressed when it comes to this particular thing. We are hysterical, we are neurotic because we have a uterus, right?
Hmm.
So this is why, uh, you know, uh, even educated women oftentimes don't want to speak out. Then what will the normal, ordinary person do? What will the normal woman do? We
Hmm.
need to tell women it's okay to be hysterical. It's okay to feel. Not just women, men too. For we are, after all, feelings and emotions and thoughts and cogitation and deliberation, right? That's what we are doing right now. Feeling different emotions while we talk, express, react. So that is why women do not want to talk about mental health and they're suppressed in every step in the career, in if you're living in a sort of a joint family with your mother-in-law, father-in-law, your life is not yours anymore. You're bearing children. Most men do not look after their children. It is up to the woman. And now she's working too. So she's a superwoman. I saw an ad where a woman, it was an atta ad where you make those rolled bread. She comes into the house. She's a CEO. She parks her car. She gets up. Her father is there. She makes him tea. She goes into the kitchen. She starts making food. But we've seen that she's the CEO. So what do we expect women to be? The supermen. super
Mm.
men, and I don't say super women, super men. She's got to be as good in the boardroom as she's got to be as a mother. So where are these demarcations? A woman can be hysterical just like you can. And to show that emotion is relevant. Not only relevant, it's important. And for us to understand and accept that it is okay to feel that and to support and to love. That is where we are headed. And as external technologies are there to help us, the process is internal. It is
Mhm,
always going to be internal. So you do
mhm,
not bring together a collaboration of external objects and internal focus. You
mhm,
will not break out of stress. You know what I mean? So combining these, realizing the feminine is as important as the masculine, and to bring about a sensitive awareness of how we may interact and express ourselves. I think that is the key to everything. That is why women do suffer more from mental health issues, is because we are expected to do the impossible.
mhm, mhm.
We are
Thank you.
back to work after we've just delivered a baby. We are back to work and we have to be as productive. We have
Mhm,
to pump breast milk and come and feed our baby. And mostly we leave the milk at home and we have to depend on someone else to feed the baby. So this is going on. This is happening in the world. And women are to function perfectly. How will they? How will they? They can't.
mhm,
So this is what society needs to understand and acknowledge. That yes, women will not speak about mental health. Her child could be taken from her. Her husband will possibly start
Right?
an affair if she starts talking to him about mental health when he comes back home. What is she to do? Tell me.
mhm,
So,
Good job.
this is something I absolutely believe that we need acceptance. We need to stop telling women to not be hysterical. We need to
mhm,
stop labeling and using pejorative words to, signify emotions and the
mhm,
emotional health and the emotional IQ.
mhm, mhm.
Yes, and you
Thank
were
you.
asking me something that,
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Tina. Chioma, I think that you want to add some point in terms of Nigeria. Yeah.
Yes, I actually have to be in another meeting, but before I go, I my final words or my final remarks with regards to this discussion is that we need to start telling people that it's okay to be weak at some point. We need to start telling people that it also is very okay to have downtime, to have alone time, to to give priority to your mental health. You need to tell people that it's okay to take time off and breathe. Take some time off and just breathe. Let it, take in all the good energy and let the bad energy go off. And then we need to also tell people that it's okay for them to love themselves. It's okay for them to set boundaries, of what it is they want to let in and what they don't want around their space. Give people their required personal space. And is also we also need to push the narrative that the workplace does not have to be the battlefield. The workplace does not have to be the war zone where we all want to win at the expense of each other and at the expense of ourselves. We need to bring some emotional intelligence to work. We need to bring some empathy to work. And we also need to look out for each other. Bring in music to work, bring in relaxation to work, bring in some refreshment and some recreation to work. Because at the end of the day, it is the employee with the best mental health that will give you the results that you are looking out for. Yeah, because you get people to work. We are not robots. The human being we can never work like AI machines, taking iterations over and over again, not getting tired, not getting bored. People should be allowed to get bored with certain tasks, and then they can be switched to do things that also challenge and excite them to improve their mental health. So these are many of the points that I have gathered, the different technologies that we can use to support employees to have a better experience at work in order to improve their mental health is what I'll be taking home. And I bet you that my work environment is going to be more exciting so that my mental health can also be more, it can get better and achieve overall productivity. Thank you to everyone that has been on this panel. I'm sorry, I just have to run now, and I hope to meet all of you some other time. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Musharraf Hossain sir, many things come from the gender issues like men and women issues. Many things come from technology, climate change issues from around the world, from USA, from India, even from Africa, from Europe. So what's your opinion on that particular point, especially mental health? Like, as you are president of HR federations, like you are, like your organizations taking care of these things, or still we need to improve that area?
Thank you. As a final comment, what I would like to uh, re-emphasize that this issue of mental health is often unrecognized
Mhm,
by
He has a
organizations,
cat.
and also many employees. They also don't want to disclose it. It's a
mhm.
kind of hidden things going on in the organization. So my comment would be that we have to sensitize, and we should know what exactly the
Oh, everybody's showing their animals. Yay! You're gonna
again,
get my dog.
yeah, I see that we have now
Come here,
seven,
come here.
including the cat. So what I think that this issue need to be brought into on table because it is adversely affecting the productivity. And from
Mhm,
gender point of
It's
view, what
mental
I would
health at
like
its
to
finest.
mention that
mhm,
uh, women are suffering more, but they are not disclosing. And this is
mhm.
the discrimination is going on, and that.
Nice.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for joining today, and hopefully, we will get more support because from the May we are starting our summit and everything, and people from 100 different countries, from 100 different corporations, they will join from around the world in our summit. Even already from United Nations, from World Economic Forums, and all of the important organizations, they also supporting World Talent Economy Forum initiative. And I'm your students, so always I am open for
My
learning from
pleasure.
you. Yes, yes. So
Always my pleasure.
yes,
Student
yes.
become
To get a dog or
more
a cat.
important and more talented than teacher. So it's a pleasure for me.
Thank you. Always I'm open, and every time I learn from your initiative, and I learn how to develop organizations, how to develop global relationships, and how to make a collaboration. That is the things I practically learn from your classroom. So thank you for all of your support and your guideline.
Thank you. I'm
Thanks,
impressed with
Sharif.
your ability and your growth. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So we directly want to go for the concluding remarks. Valerie, what's your concluding remarks for today? Valerie,
You are mute.
can you
You are
unmute
mute.
yourself?
Yes, my final remarks are get a pet. Yes, Tina says yes. Oh, so does Paul. Okay, good. Get a pet. Do hobbies. Get involved in hobbies. People need hobbies. to be able to be to balance, for the balance. And the third thing is we need to speak up. And we need to speak up in the right way to everybody, our partners, our bosses, whomever. And we need to do it in the right way. We have to be able to take responsibility for our feelings and not blame the other person, because the wall will come down and they'll hear nothing. So that's where I'm stopping.
Thank you. Thank you. Tina, what's the concluding remarks for today from your side?
Yes, get an animal companion for sure. Learn basics of breath work. Develop a connection with the stars above. For when you look up and you realize the magnitude of the universe, the noble universe, and you realize the concept of black holes and quasars and pulsars. Human life and its jealousies and its frivolities just becomes so insignificant when you connect to a greater cause, a cause higher than yourself. I not only have companion animals, I feed 26 animals on the road. So that is
Excellent.
something that I do every single day. I also work in rescuing elderly people from the street, where
Mhm,
I work with an NGO called Avesta. So we literally rescue beggars and elderly people from the street. Some we keep in our small little place, which we have housed about 15 people. And from there, we feed 40 people as well. So, engage in a social cause, engage in giving as enjoy receiving. So you have your karma. I believe in karma. I adhere to that very deeply. So, you sow what you reap. You reap what you sow. Sorry, see, I got that completely perverted there. But literally, you reap what you sow. So if you sow love, peace, compassion, if you engage with the world and participate in the drama of life, and I don't mean drama in a pejorative connotation, I mean drama, the 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 magnificence of life, then you realize how truly splendid every single day can be, and even the most profane act can become sacred. That is what I think, and that is what I believe in, and that's what I've done all my life, making
mhm,
every single ordinary act sacred, connecting to my breath, connecting to the physical body, very important. So that was
mhm.
it. It was lovely having had such a wondrous conversation with all of you. Thank you, Valerie. Loved your dog, by the way. So cute. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ali. And thank you so much, Sharif, for having me. And
Thank you.
Paul, of
Thank
course,
you.
it was so nice. Your energy is really nice and
Thank you.
kind as well. Climate, I'm very, very actively engaged with climate myself. So all the
Mhm.
best. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very good
Ali,
night.
can you? Thank you. Ali, can you hear me? Okay. Professor Paul, what the concluding remarks for today? And I know that you have a lot of works,
I can
especially in
hear you.
online. Oh,
Yeah.
Ali, can you give me the concluding remarks? Then I want to go to the Professor Paul. Yes. Ali, can you give the concluding remarks for today? Ali, can you?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that I kind of reiterate conscious about what we do and how we behave and how we treat people. And that if
Mhm,
COVID's done anything, it's made us realise that we need to be much more connected and compassionate towards people. So I think if the workplace actually creates value, so everyone's shown worth, and and the soft skills and the emotional
mhm,
intelligence is really important. So I think we're kind of moving into a new age of enlightenment, so work needs to be more playful and about being inspired and engaged, so action's much more productive and much more, it just pushes us forward. So I think it's about kind of creating new a new way. It means it's a win-win for everyone.
Mhm. Thank you, Ali. Professor Paul.
Is that okay?
Yes, thank you, Ali. I'm sorry that you have some internet problem.
Yeah.
So, Professor Paul, what are the concluding remarks for today, and how do you want to guide World Talent Economy Forum for the future?
Well, I think that doing things in moderation and having balance in one's
Right.
life is very crucial. And when I talk about balance, I'm a big believer also in hobbies, but I think choosing the type of hobby can be very important. So if your job involves sitting in front of a computer all day and your body is really not moving that much, then I mean a hobby like chess or something is not the best choice. A hobby like woodworking or birding, like photography of birds or something. You want to do a hobby that gets if you're sitting in front of a computer all day, you want to choose a hobby that uses your hands, uses hand-eye coordination, uses your body moving, for example, like long walks and taking bird spotting or bird photography or something. You want to So when you think about balance, you think about your whole body balance. Like if you're using your mind all day, at your job, then you don't want a hobby that has to use your mind a lot. You want a hobby that involves motion or painting or uses different parts of your brain, because you know it to have good health. You also trying new things is crucial. We get
Mhm,
stuck in patterns of doing things. We put ourselves into slots that, I do this or I do that. Do something that you totally would never have considered doing. Try new things, and that will lead you onto new paths, and you'll learn a lot more about yourself. And the more you learn about yourself, the more able you are to tolerate stresses, and to weather bad times when they come, because we all have times in our lives when things go horrible, right? So in order to be more resilient to those sort of things, the more variety of things that we do, the more interesting our lives are, the better, the more resilient we are to more quickly recover from these negative things that happen. And that
mhm,
applies in work and in life as well, I think. So thank
mhm,
you for everybody for this session. It's been very, very informative. I've learned an awful lot, and yeah, very inspiring too. Thank you.
mhm. Thank you, everybody for joining today. Actually, World Talent Economy Forums, our major focus. We want to bring the talent from around the world. Already, we are connected 100 different countries and more than 300 different corporations, university, academia, think tanks. Even many organizations now they are working with us closely. So we are doing a lot of research as well as academic activities. And from May, we want to develop our summit, and by this way we will grow together and we will develop our youth communities. So I request all of the professors, even I know that Professor Paul, Professor Pauls, Tina, Valerie, and Ali, everybody has strong collaboration in between their ecosystems. So hopefully if you share our content, I'm sure your youth community will find a very important voice from around the world, from North America, from Europe, from Asia Pacific, from Africa, from Bangladesh, from India, everywhere we are trying to bring all of the talented guys, those who are changing the world with their climate change initiative, with their VRs, with their human resources, lot of initiative they are taking. And I'm really proud of with our speakers, those who supporting us. And especially I want to give thanks the youth community, those who always support us. Already we are distributing our content in between 5 million youth community in Asia Pacific, and hopefully we will grow together and need more of your support, more of your contributions, and more of your guidelines. So I want to invite you all in our board of advisory, and you can guide World Talent Economy Forums. Thank you everyone for joining today. Hopefully the next week we will invite you all for another discussion. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
very
Thank you.
much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night. I don't know whether everybody has a night, but this is good night in Bangladesh. I know the other parts is the
Good night to
good
you
morning.
too.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good
Okay.
night
Okay.
and good
Bye.
morning.
Have a
Okay.
safe.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.